Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to those of you further to my east. My name is Doug Olthof. I am the co-lead of the National LIPS Secretariat pilot project. And we're here today to talk about the Immigration Data Portal, which is the product of a partnership between the Local Immigration Partnerships Network and the Community Data Program. So I'm just going to bring up hopefully people are joining us now, and I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint presentation, show my screen, and just walk you a little bit through that partnership. And I'm going to pass it off to two of my colleagues at the Community Data Program, Michelle, to tell you a little bit more about the Community Data Program itself, and Mike, who's going to lead some demonstrations of how we can use the Immigration Data Portal to obtain and use data that's relevant to our local immigration partnership areas. So just give me 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen here. So we should have that there. And I'll just say before I get started here that we have a question and answer box. Should be visible down at the bottom of your screen. And if at any time in our presentations and our discussion you have questions, go ahead and type them into the question and answer box there. I'll be monitoring that throughout our session today. And I'll be talking with my fellow panelists to make sure that they're aware of the questions and that we're clarifying things for you as we go along. So just again, to give you a little bit of background about this partnership. The partnership between the LIPS network and the Community Data Program dates back to, if I'm not mistaken, about 2017, when IRCC funded this partnership under the leadership and direction of the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership. And what that initial period consisted of was the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership bringing together a LIPS data group consisting of about 10 LIPS that came together in 2018 to do a number of things to get this partnership off the ground. And some of those things included determining, first of all, what LIPS were already members of local data consortiums. And local data consortiums are ways that essentially communities can become members of the Community Data Program and gain access to the full catalog of data. So one of the first jobs was to determine which LIPS already had access to the Community Data Program and were accessing data, and that helped give a sense of what the need was for this partnership to provide access to other local immigration partnerships. From there, the LIPS data group looked at what LIPS geographies were in relation to census subdivisions, because as many of you will know, the geographies and service areas of local immigration partnerships in many cases do not coincide with other geographic boundaries like census subdivisions. We have regional LIPS that cover and include several different communities. We have big city LIPS that maybe just cover a portion of the city and different situations like that. So another job of the LIPS data group was to help work through which LIPS would need custom geographies. And I'll go into a little bit more about what that means in terms of accessing data in just a second. The group also worked on helping prioritize what the needs of LIPS would be in terms of data so that they could help set priorities in terms of data purchases, what types of data should be included in the community in the immigration data portal. So the immigration data portal itself provides all LIPS with access to locally relevant data. And that means data that coincides with, again, their service areas, in some cases, custom geographies or the geographies that match the sort of area of operation for that LIP. It also provides infographics that you can pull off of the website that you'll see a bit more about in a little while, that give you a very nice sort of snapshot of the immigration picture in your community or your working area. And it allows access to downloadable data tables, really sort of rich and detailed data derived primarily from the census, the National Household Survey of Statistics Canada, and the longitudinal immigration database, which is a very rich source of information about immigration and immigration outcomes, settlement and integration outcomes across the country and over time. So again, this project provides that at the level of custom geographies or geographies specific to your local immigration partnership, and also allows access to that information, to that data, for LIPs who are not part of local data consortiums. Just one second here, I want to advance my screen. So to talk a little bit more about the CDP and LIPS partnership, I sort of gave you an overview of that. So again, the local data, the LIPS data group was formed in 2018, set priorities for data requests, and as I said, established which LIPS already had access to data, which would need access, which LIPS would need custom geographies. And then IRCC has provided funding to this partnership to facilitate the purchase of data that will be made available through the Immigration Data Portal. As I mentioned, this project was initiated under the coordination of the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership. In April of this year, that coordinating role was transferred from Calgary to me here in Jasper as a sort of stepping stone towards including the coordination of this partnership under the National LIPS Secretariat. So, as I mentioned, Michelle is going to give a more detailed overview of the community data program, and then Mike is going to sort of lead you through a demonstration of how to work with the portal. But I just wanted to go over sort of, for me, how the resource of the community data program generally and the immigration data portal has been useful. You know, I was the coordinator of the Jasper Local Immigration Partnership before we began this National LIPS Secretariat project in April. And I have found this to be a very useful resource for me in a number of ways. And I think each LIP, of course, is quite unique. That's sort of the strength of our model. But there are certain things that we all sort of engage in, certain areas of work that we're all involved with, and I think there are a number of ways that this immigration data portal can be beneficial to that work. And the first one, I think, is the strategic planning that we're all involved with in terms of developing local settlement strategies, so strategic plans to coordinate work around newcomer settlements and integration. And this is where, I mean, the use of data is almost quite obvious in terms of identifying what the specific challenges, what the needs are, and what the sort of big picture is of immigration, settlement, and integration in your community. The inclusion of the longitudinal immigration database is, I think, a very important one here. And I think you're going to hear more about that from Michelle and certainly from Mike. It can be a very useful tool for getting a picture of what has been happening over time in your community in terms of a range of outcomes, from the sort of demographics of immigration to economic outcomes, housing outcomes, and other things, to sort of, again, see the picture of what's happening in your community and create strategic plans that address issues that you can see clearly through the data, that you have a strong foundation for understanding what the challenges are, and then you moving on to strategic planning around addressing those challenges. I have found personally that I have been working in a small community where, and I think this is probably true of communities of many sizes, you have opportunities to engage with newcomers, whether it's through newcomer councils, immigrant advisory tables, surveys, interviews, focus groups, to arrive at sort of small n qualitative data that tells you the sort of firsthand experience of settlement integration from the perspective of newcomers. that is incredibly valuable information for us in our work. But for anyone who's sort of had a background or any experience in research methodologies and how we conduct research and how we come to know things, sometimes speaking to a small number of people can be very, very important in terms of having a rich picture of what's going on, but is not always a great approach for seeing the big picture, for having a robust understanding of what's going on in the community. So I have found that employing those methodologies of speaking to people in small groups, of doing interviews and doing surveys with smaller numbers of people and getting that rich picture can be augmented very well by using the quantitative data available through the Community Data Program and the Immigration Data Portal. I found that to be very useful in the strategic planning process. A second thing that I find very useful with this type of data is communicating to the community. One of the things we have to do as LIPS is communicate with partners who are not always, are not traditionally involved in settlement and integration and don't necessarily think of themselves as partners in that process at the outset anyway. And data can be a very powerful way of telling that story and communicating to the community and to potential partners what the need is for coordinated strategic approaches to settlement and integration work in the community. So creating that community buy-in and creating or communicating to partners the importance of addressing challenges around settlement and integration is something that can be done very effectively using the data that's available through this portal. And then another area that I think is important to all of us is securing funding. Something that we do as LIP coordinators is look for opportunities to find funding to support our collaborative work with partners. And again, this is somewhere where the type of data available through this portal, whether it's through infographics or through data tables that we can download and pull numbers from, is a very powerful way of communicating to potential funders what the need is. Numbers are compelling. And if we can show through this data numbers at the local level, at the level of our communities that show, first of all, what the immigration picture is, what challenges newcomers might be facing in our communities, I think it's a powerful way to show not only to our community, but to potential funders what our need is and what we, first of all, need to do and to show also progress towards our goals. So those are just a few of the ways that I have found the Immigration Data Portal and the Community Data Program more generally to be very useful in our work as local immigration partnerships. Of course, there are also some challenges, and that's exactly why we are trying to offer opportunities to learn more about using this this tool and using data more generally. For anyone who has already experienced working with the Immigration Data Portal or with the Community Data Program itself, I think it's fair to say that for a first-time user logging into the web page, it's not always immediately obvious what to do. It's this is sometimes can appear complex and maybe not always intuitive. So I think it is important that we, and if you look around on the Community Data Program website, you'll find there are a lot of resources, tutorials, and videos to show you sort of how to use the website. But I think it's fair to say that without the aid of tutorials and webinars such as this one, it's not always entirely intuitive of what to do and how to access the data you need and how to get, there's a vast amount of data available, and to get to what you need and what's going to be useful for you in your particular work on a given day, again, it's not always perfectly intuitive. And then going beyond just finding the data, then you need to sort of drill down to exactly what you need and to understand and manipulate and communicate that data. And that's where working with programs like Beyond 2020 and also the program Tableau can be very, very helpful. But again, we're not always coming into it with knowledge of how to use those programs. So it's, again, important to take the time to learn to use those programs. As it stands right now, there are a limited number of infographics available, and that might be something that we can work on in the future. If you go again to the immigration data portal, which hopefully some of you have, and hopefully all of you will be after our conversation today, you'll find that there are some very useful infographics, but there's not going to be everything available at one click to show, you know, anything that you might want to be communicating with your partners in your communities. And of course, we all come at this with different backgrounds, and some of us have a more experience working with quantitative data, with the sort of big N, the large N data that's available primarily through this website or through the data portal. And so some of us will need tutorials, will need help in determining exactly how we're going to work with this data and how we can arrive at sort of robust or reliable knowledge from data. We have to move from data to knowledge, and that's not always a very straightforward line. So when we talk about challenges, we always like to switch gears and talk about opportunities as well. So there are many opportunities to learn more about how to access the immigration data portal, to access the community data program, and to use data. And the first one, obviously, is this webinar itself. So I'm very glad that you've joined us today, and I hope that this is going to be very useful to you in learning more about this tool and how to use it and how it can be beneficial to your work. As I also mentioned, on the community data program website itself, there are a number of tutorials, videos, and resources that can help you understand how to navigate that website, how to use the community data program tool, and how to use the immigration data portal. We also will have more training coming up, and this is maybe a bit of a soft announcement. We haven't really made this announcement to the whole community of LIPS quite yet, but we are, as the National LIP Secretariat, in the process of organizing a national LIP learning event that will take place quite soon. More details will be coming soon, but we are planning to include more training on the immigration data portal, the community data program, and on the use of quantitative data in your work as LIPS as part of that event. So stay tuned for that. There will be more announcements coming very soon. And as hopefully many of you will have seen, I circulated an email yesterday with a survey relating to your needs around training and professional development with respect to using data in your work. So that survey is going to help us determine what we want to do or what we should be doing in terms of organizing and holding either more webinars like this one, producing tutorial materials, or really the field is quite wide open in terms of what we can do to help you as our partners better access, understand, and use the tools that are available to you to access and to use this data. So that is sort of my very brief overview of this partnership between the Local Immigration Partnerships Network, or National LIP Secretariat as it's becoming, and the Community Data Program. So I am now going to pass it over to Michelle, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Community Data Program itself. And then sort of third in our lineup, Mike is going to go through the really sort of more detailed practical demonstration of how to use the immigration data portal in your work. So once again, we have the Q&A box down on the bottom of your screen there, and feel free at any time to type your questions in. I'm just going to check that right now. So I do have a couple of questions. So most I'll just address this one before I pass it on. So the question is that most immigration data is government owned. And does the government sell this data, or are we talking privately owned data? And what's an example of who would be in the business of selling this data? So the primary, the real source of data, the data that we're funded to purchase is from Statistics Canada. So it is government, it is another government agency that has this data. And again, it's coming from what's available right now through the immigration data portal is primarily coming through the National Household Survey, the census, and the immigration database. So I think probably Michelle and certainly Mike can talk a little bit more about those data sources, but as far as I'm aware, and you guys feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, there are no purchases of data from private businesses in what we're doing here. So as I said, I'll be monitoring the question and answers, but for now, I'm going to pass it on to Michelle. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug, and welcome fellow aspiring data geeks to this presentation. I'm going to provide a segue between the overview that Doug just provided about the relationship that's evolved over the last few years between the program and the network of local immigration partnerships across the country, and hand over to Mike, who's going to do a deep dive on the immigration data and immigration-related data resources we have in the program. So I'm just going to walk you through what this program itself is all about. And as I go through, I'm happy to answer questions. The one about data sources will come up over the course of what I'm about to talk about. So the program itself was conceived about a quarter century ago, and it has obviously evolved over the years. It's currently hosted by the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, CEDNet. And what we do through CEDNet is work with our members, and our members are some mix of municipalities, community-based organizations, and really any organization with a mandate to deliver services locally. We work with our members in order to identify answers to your questions where you can use data in order to inform anything from program design to neighborhood profiles to evaluations and a range of other things. So really bringing the capacity to work with evidence into the work of organizations that have a local mandate. So our tagline reflects that. So it really is about building capacity to use data in work that has impact locally. So we have an approach to delivering our services, and really the framework for our work is that there are inherent inequities in the ability to make use of and access data. So our work really revolves around filling and understanding two gaps. The data gap in some ways is secondary to what often is the biggest gap facing a lot of the organizations we work with, which is what we call a capacity gap, which is you don't typically have easy and continuous access to a data analyst or a geometician on your team. Sometimes you do, and a significant minority of our member organizations have very high capacity, but the typical member organization does not have that kind of inherent ability to send someone off, download some complex data tables, turn it into a format that they can work with to copy and paste into a report or a presentation. So the capacity gap is something that we have turned our attention to over the years. And obviously the data gap is real and significant, and it's reflected not just in the cost of data as suggested by the question, because there is a cost to data. There's a cost to the data you need to answer the questions you have often. But it's also that we just don't have the kind of surveys or even administrative data that allow you to understand what's happening within a municipality or at the neighborhood scale. So much of our data that's out there, particularly data created through Statistics Canada, has an audience that has a perspective that is the entire country, maybe province-wide, but not typically relevant to one city or a rural area and the neighborhoods and communities within that city or rural area. So what we do in delivering our services is try to fill this capacity gap and the data gap for member organizations that typically have relatively limited capacity and limited access to data. So I mentioned that we are membership-based. Our members, we have about 400 active members across the country. And the structure of our network is built around what we call a community data consortium. So we have about over 30 consortia with, like I said, about 400 member organizations. We have quite a number of inactive member organizations who are simply part of the broader network, but don't download data. They will receive our newsletter, participate in our webinars, stay in touch, but in many cases, they simply do not have the capacity to access the kind of complex data sets that are present in our program. And then for any member organization, because our members are organizations, an organization has the ability to allow an unlimited number of its employees to participate in the program through a user account. So we now have approaching 2,000 individuals who have set up an account, and that account allows them to access the full repository of our data holdings, not just the immigration-related data, all the other data. I'll spend a minute talking about this community data consortium model. The model really focuses on what would typically be a municipality, could be a health region. It's an area of geography where there is a local focus, and any organization located within the consortium's boundaries that has a not-for-profit or public sector mandate to deliver services is free to join the program. So like I said, we have about 30 of these community data consortia. And while the consortium was conceived as a way to share in the costs of purchasing services, really it meant to function as a community development model. So what we find when a consortium is working really well is that you have any number of organizations representing multiple sectors sitting around the table. So these kinds of organizations would be part of a consortium. And when they meet, because some consortia meet on a regular basis, when they meet, they find they're not just there to talk about cost sharing, but they're actually there to talk about problem solving in their community and how you use evidence to resolve problems. So those of you involved with LIPS, probably, well, you're all involved with LIPS, but any one LIP may very well be sitting at the table with some or all of these organizations locally. So all of these organizations have a mandate to work with data in some form or another, and the program is meant to inform that sort of community development model grounded in evidence. So at the core of membership, there are three basic sets of services. At the heart of the program is access to data, and the data we acquire is meant to allow you to measure and track conditions and changes at a municipal scale or smaller. So wherever we try to acquire data, our goal is to get data that allows you to measure a city, neighborhood, community level trends. We are far less interested in data that's simply about the province or simply about all of Canada, but really interested in data that measures in census terms, census tracts, dissemination areas, census subdivisions, and census divisions. So getting access to data through our catalog is at the core of the program. And the immigration data portal provides access to all LIPS to immigration-related data, but there are well over 1,000 products, each of which can have dozens of variables and tens of thousands of geographies that are available to members. And related to that, for the reasons I've explained, we have a focus on building capacity. So our typical member organization really does not have the ability to work with Beyond 2020, download tables, work in Excel, export into charts, and a whole series of pretty technical and pretty sophisticated skills. So our goal is to work with you to either, if possible, develop those skills, and alternatively, provide tools that simply allow you to click, copy, and paste a ready-to-go chart into your report or presentation. So capacity building has become an emerging part of what we do, and this presentation today is part of that. And then finally, we try to pull together our network. And our network is made up of what we call data practitioners. While researchers and universities can be part of a consortium where they have a particular unit or department that has a very, very focused task around community development, our members really are about people working in municipal governments and community organizations. And what we try to do through a range of tools is to bring that network together because they have many of the same questions, whether you're in St. John's or Victoria or Saskatoon or Northwestern Ontario. If you're working in a local setting, some of your questions will be similar across the board and similar data sets are needed to answer them. Obviously, there are big differences between some of those, but we do find there's a lot of common interest. So data, building capacity of our members, and enabling networking across sectors, all of whom share in common commitment to evidence-based decision-making, is what you get for your membership. And where we are heading over the next couple of years is looking at a range of innovations to continue to close the gap on capacity and close the gap on data. I mean, I won't go to these in detail. I'll kind of maybe cherry pick a couple. Doug actually mentioned Tableau. Tableau is data visualization software, which is very powerful for bringing together very complex data sets into a format that makes the data easier to understand. So we've invested quite a bit of our time over the last year in using Tableau, both to visualize data, but also to make it easier to access complex data sets. So you don't need to learn how to use Beyond 2020, and you don't need to manipulate data within Excel. You simply click on a few buttons and generate an export, and you have a ready to go PowerPoint presentation or PDF file. So that would be an example of enhancing data capacity through data visualization and access. And in the area of new data sources, we've embarked on the journey of modeling data. So there are a lot of really interesting surveys out there, labor force survey, for example, that just don't allow us to answer questions at a community level. The sample size isn't big enough. You can't have reliable information from the labor force survey for a typical municipality, certainly nothing at a neighborhood scale. So working with Statistics Canada, we have successfully modeled liquid assets, basically household savings, down to the equivalent of a regional municipality or a county for all of Canada. So we now can, through the program, allow access to data that allows you to understand household savings across the country. The next step is to look at it more fine-grained than counties and regional municipalities. It's to look at neighborhoods in cities and small municipalities across the country. But it's an example of modeling data in order to get at the geographies we're looking at. And of course, there are other areas of innovation that we're considering, but those are two examples. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Mike. I guess I can quickly just add to Doug's answer on the question about data sources. So we acquire data, of course, for topics that are related to immigration, but beyond the scope of simply narrowly defined immigration. And there are a mix of publicly available data sets and privately sold data sets. And we buy data. I mean, that's a big part of our budget. And we are prepared to buy data from either party, but the private sources can get quite expensive because of licensing restrictions. We often find with public sources that money is not the issue. It's not that they sell their data, they just don't have the in-house capacity to do the analysis we need to get the data down to a scale that makes it relevant to the program. So a lot of the data related to immigration, by my estimation, would not be privately sourced. Depends on your topic, of course. But if it was privately sourced, let us know, because we are interested in acquiring data from any source, as long as it allows for analysis at a municipal or a neighborhood scale and is available for the whole country. So I'll stop at that, but Mike will have a much deeper and broader opinion on data sources. I don't know if there have been a few questions that came in. I haven't had a look, so I will stop at that. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I think maybe before Mike kind of gets into the meat of his presentation, maybe we'll just pause for a moment and have a look at some of the questions that have come in. Some of those questions have been answered in the chat, but I'm not sure that the chat is getting through evenly to everyone. So maybe we can just quickly go over them. So let's just quickly look at a couple of questions here. Let's see here. We'll start with, there was a question of whether the platform could replace the need to hire data center teams, or whether team members can do in-depth analysis for a particular LIP. Mike, I know you answered this one in the chat. Maybe you can share a little bit of that answer with us.
Yeah, so we're here to help our members, and we're here to help the LIP network as well. You know, we do have to set a reasonable limit on the work that we can do for data-related questions as they come in. But certainly, I'm always happy to spend a little bit of time to open a file to try to help people extract data, show them how to do. Ideally, if people want to get on a call with me and we can do it together, then that's a great way to show someone how to do it, and then they can serve themselves. We are always trying to develop new products that could ideally replace the need for data analysis teams, such as the Infographics. We're working on various other products in Tableau. But beyond that, we also do offer a fee-based analytics service. If you have an in-depth project that you'd like us to work on, we are available to do that.
Great, thank you. And maybe we'll look at a couple more. There was a question of whether community data program members request data products that specifically address their needs, or sort of how it is that we determine, or you determine, what data is going to be available.
It's so we have a stock set of products, things that come up every year that we get, really where priorities and decisions need to be made frequently with the census, and that is what we get from the census is determined through a large priority setting exercise that we hold with a working group, the Data Purchase and Access Working Group, and we're always happy to have people join that group. So it's based on partly what was popular previously. We know there's a certain set of tables that we would need to continue to get in for each set of censuses, but priorities change over time, and we listen to our working group members and try to weigh, it comes really down to a bit of a scoring system that we set up with the working group members, but what it goes into the score are requests that we receive from members, and we do listen to members when they send a request. Sometimes it just works out that it is something that that we could get quickly, figure out, but most often we don't take requests and turn around and send that request to Statistics Canada. We already have a long list of requests sitting in the queue with StatsCan that needs to be dealt with before we can take just one-off requests. But please do, we are very interested in receiving people's requests to hear what people are interested in.
Great, Mike, thanks. I'm just going to throw out two other quick questions before we move on to the next section. The first one was, what is your relation with RDCs that have already access to Statistics Canada data that can be analyzed by graduate students? And the second one, does the immigration data portal include data on temporary foreign workers?
So we don't have temporary foreign worker data, unfortunately, and that question's come up, and we've been trying to work out how we could get some sort of view that we've spoken with some of the directors at StatsCan about this issue, and they're looking into it. It's difficult to get an accurate picture. It has to do with the number of people that are actually I believe it's what you can capture with the T1 and the T4 in order to capture who's there, and it's, at any rate, we were told that they're very reluctant to release any data on that because they feel that it would be wildly inaccurate. For the research data centers, we don't have a relationship with them. My understanding is that that's mostly to provide access to micro data files. You need to go through some vetting and sign some confidentiality agreements to get into the micro data. We have client executives and relationships with different departments at StatsCan, and that's how we acquire our data.
Great, thanks very much for that. So now we're going to go into the next section of the presentation, and Mike is going to give us a sort of a more detailed walkthrough of how to work with the immigration data portal. I will continue to monitor the question box, so if you have questions and if there's anything that you'd like some more clarification on, please just write it down in the Q&A box, and I will ask Mike to elaborate where necessary. Go ahead, Mike, thanks.
Okay, so we have until 2:15, and I have a few things to go through. I'll start sharing my screen. Just share the screen. You can all see this. Hopefully this, I'm seeing a box of our heads. Hopefully that's not in the way.
It is very visible, and Yeah, we're also taking any suggestions for a better graphic.
Yes, sorry. You know, this, anyway, I'm not going to make any comments on the graphic, but this is the landing page for the immigration data portal. You can find it if you go to community data. If you go to our homepage under, sorry, I may, hopefully I didn't just hit, I have an admin menu here that you would not have. And maybe I'll actually just log out for a little bit just while I do this, so it'll look a little bit more like what you would see. If you come to our homepage, you can go under resources straight to the immigration data portal. So I'm going to run through what's offered on the immigration data portal, how you can sign up, register your organization, get an account, download, run through the catalog a little bit, download tables, open them up in Beyond 2020 and extract them. I don't know if this is going to overload the chat box, but I'm going to go through this assuming that people need a little bit of a tutorial in all of that, including how to use Beyond 2020. So I don't know if this is too basic, starting with registering it, but I should note as well that a lot of the information I'm presenting here and how to use the immigration data portal is outlined here in this document, accessing the CDP immigration data portal, a step-by-step guide. This was put together by the last National LIP coordinator. And it's fairly detailed. It will run you through step-by-step how to sign up, where you can find everything you need. It goes into quite a bit of detail on filling things out. I'll try to just run through that fairly quickly so we can get into, hopefully have a little bit of time to get into the data. But please go ahead and post questions. I guess no one's going to say that this is too simple for them and that we should skip it. But if there's a lot of people that have done some parts of this, then I might be able to go through a little bit faster. At any rate, I think Michelle alluded to the relationship that we have with the LIP network. In some cases, your LIP may already be a member of the community data program. They may belong to a consortium. If that's the case, if your organization is already registered, then you can get your own account just by, if you click under my account or join here, there's a link going directly to it. You register a new account here. Fill this in. It's all fairly self-explanatory. You would go here and look up if you start typing your member organization, it's going to start autofilling possibilities for you to select. And then you would go and select one of these. So you may, if you are part of a consortium, then you would select the consortium that you are located in. If your organization is not, then you would select Immigration Sector Network as your consortium. And of course, before finishing, you really should read the terms and conditions of use and accept them. Tell us that you're not a robot. Create your new account. It can take 1 or 2 days for us to activate your account. You won't be able to immediately start downloading data. You have to wait for us to activate it. So that's if you are a member. If you're not a member, would like to join a data consortium, you would need to find out what consortium you are located in, and You can always write us directly, information@communitydata.ca, just to ask if there's a consortium in your neck of the woods, or you write them. You can write the lead organization directly, but if that's a bit too complicated, you can always come to us. However, if you can't join a data consortium, then as indicated before, you can joining a consortium and being a full member gives you access to the full account, to the full catalog rather of data, and that's all of our data. We have a second catalog with immigration related data only, and that is for the immigration sector network. This is part of the relationship that we have with the LIP network. And so if you can't join a consortium, then you can join as part of the immigration sector network. First, you need to register your LIP. So you would register your organization, give a little bit of details, website. Again, your consortium is the immigration sector network in that case. Provide some information. You don't need to deal with the feed creation date of renewal date. Tell us that you're not a robot and save you off to the races. Again, this can take 1 or 2 days for us to get approved and activated. So we may need to check with Doug or check our records to see that you are a real LIP, and then we go into the database and activate you. Then once your organization is registered, then you can register your account. That also has to be activated, and then you're off to the races. Then you really, now is where the fun begins, and you can start looking at. Can I hide this thing at the top? I can't see it. Anyway, you can look through the data catalog that's available to the immigration sector network, or you can look at the immigration infographics that are available for your community. So I'll start with the infographics. I'm not signed in. Let me just log in. And then we can, do I have it open? No. So we've taken, these were inspired by just some fillable infographics that were requested from us a while back. And these were PDFs that you could fill in with data for your community. We've since updated these and created Tableau versions of them, which you can open in Tableau Reader. And you would click on these links to download one of the workbooks, which I'm not going to do now. Instead, I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's open. I want to hide this thing. It's in my way. So here's what the infographic looks like for the recent immigrant profile, showing for the population of immigrants that arrived between 2011 and 2016. This data obviously comes from the census. As a default, it would be showing you likely all data for Canada, but you can select the geographic level that you're interested in. Do you want something at the provincial level? CSD, that census subdivision, so that corresponds to a municipality. CD is census division, that might be a county or a region. This is the census metropolitan area. These are, there's 33, 36 of these in Canada, and so relate to larger metropolitan areas, and then census agglomerations. So you're likely going to be interested in data for your census division, your region, for your municipality. You may want to to do a comparison with provincial values. We also have a number of immigration sector network custom geographies for which we have data for the profile. So if I selected that, then you get a list of all the possible immigration LIP custom geographies for which you can get a profile. If I start typing, then it will narrow down the list and then loads up the appropriate data. So in the Welcoming Committee's Coalition of North Vancouver Island, top birth country is in the Philippines. This is the total population for North Vancouver Island, and recent immigrants make up 635 of that total population. You get median age comparisons, information on economic status, level of education, low income incidence, the unemployment rate. And it's been designed to be fairly easy to use. If I'm interested in Montreal, where I'm currently located, I just start typing in MONT, and then the list narrows down. And here we see similar values. We see that the profile has been filled in. And then you can take this, and I believe save it as a PDF, export as a PowerPoint. You have a number of ways of taking this and exporting it so that it can be something you can use in your own work. Hopefully that's relatively straightforward. I'm going to move on now, just sake of time, to look at the data catalog that's available to the Immigration Sector Network. It's set up fairly simply. You'll see everything is listed here by the order in which we received it. And you can scroll down. We have about 2 pages worth of data. It's probably worthwhile for me just to describe a couple of these products, just generally. So the longitudinal immigration database table, that's what we got from, again, from the IMDb group. And this is, it's a set of tables that tracks various outcomes and demographic profiles for the immigrant population based on their admission year and also by tax year. So it is longitudinal, and you can follow the progress of immigrant population over time. So for those immigrants who landed in a certain year or over a certain period, what is their, for example, median income average or median income been over, between 2012 and 2017. We have a set of target group profiles. These are similar to the census profile, which is essentially a large sort of one-dimensional list of summarizing most of the questions that were asked on the census, and including the census long form. And so that's the census profile, is a summary for a given region of all the answers to question. And then a target group profile is like the census profile, but for a particular demographic group. So obviously we have a target group profile for the recent immigrant population. we have a target group profile for the total immigrant population by immigration citizenship status. So we obviously included target group profiles that relate directly to the immigrant population, but we've also included other target group profiles in here because in each census, in the census profile, there are a few stubs that summarize, that provide population counts by immigration status and period of immigration. So this target group profile is looking at the population that did not attend school, that attended elementary or secondary, or attended school above the level of high school. But then within that profile, you will have a section in there listing how many of that population are immigrants who arrived between 2011 and 2016, between listing off the various periods in which they arrived. So you can cross-tabulate, you can get a picture of certain cuts of the immigrant population. So here, school attendance, you could get a picture of the immigrant population that is living alone. So you get the idea. Those are our target group profiles. We have as well some household and family target group profiles. And because target group profiles are defined based on person, that are based on a characteristic that defines the person, a lot of the household and family variables were not included. So we defined what a recent immigrant family would look like, or a recent immigrant economic family, or a recent immigrant household. These definitions are listed here in the catalog entry, and then with that, we're able to get a lot of household and family level detail about recent immigrant and immigrant households. It's worth, just as a note, when you're using our catalog, it's always worth it to read the entire catalog entry. There's a little bit of information here on choosing the appropriate denominator, and a little bit more information on the product. You have a bunch of census cross tabulations. So here we're looking at income, educational attainment, age groups, sex, and then also immigrant status and period of immigration. So you could look at the immigrant population and say, compare what was the income in 2015 for the recent immigrant population compared to the total population with the same educational attainment. And that could be cut by sex or age as you see fit. And I have this table open somewhere just in case, we'll have a little bit of time to go into Beyond 2020 and start playing with the data, and you can see how you can set up tables to answer questions like that. So similarly, labor force status, say you want to look at the employment rate or the unemployment rate or labor participation, labor force participation, for comparable educational attainment, comparing immigrants or recent immigrants to the total population. This is a table that could do something like that. So if you're interested in seeing what is in a table like this, again, as I said, you click on the link, and the dimensions here describe the variables that are contained within them. So if you want to know if something contains a particular age group, you would go in and you would click on the age group and see what's included. So here you can look at youth up to workforce population, seniors. Similarly, admission category and applicant type. This dimension was added to a lot of census tables in the 2016 census. So that summarizes, maybe I don't need to target profiles. You get an idea of the types of tables that are included in here. If we were going to download one of these tables, you click on the link. And let's say we're interested in this at census subdivision and census division. We do have custom geographies, and we have some LIP geographies. We have some tables with LIP custom geographies, but we don't have all of our custom geography tables with LIP custom geos in them. And you would need to, this will tell you, click on here to see which geographies are contained. And I believe this was in the first round when we were first getting tables produced at custom geos, and the LIP custom geos were not ready yet. So if we look through here, unfortunately, the LIP custom geos are not included as a custom geo option, which is something that we will discuss if this is to be corrected later, once we were waiting on having all of the LIP geos geocoded at once. So in this case, say you are interested in doing this tabulation for your municipality, you would want to get census subdivision, select the geographic level of interest. ADA, that's aggregate dissemination area. CMA, census metropolitan area. And so you get a screen like this. Our catalog downloading system, it's based on a shopping cart. We've looked at other options for how best to do this, but really this was, everything costs $0, so don't worry about that. But this was the best option available to us to be able to offer downloading like this and track downloads. And then you would submit your order. After you've done this, it would take you to your file downloads page. This is a list of all the files that I have downloaded. And you'll notice, I've got 4 pages here. You'll notice actually that the file that I just downloaded is not here at the top of the list. And again, another issue with this page, which we've unfortunately not been able to fix, is that these are not presented in the order in which you most recently downloaded it. These are listed by the date at which you first downloaded it. So I have actually downloaded this table before, and it is further down on this list. I think it may not even be on this page, which is not that important. I'm going to open up a different file, but let's say this was labor force status. This is an immigration related table. Once you want to get this table, then you just click on this link. And you can put the file where you want it. I'm not going to do that right now, but it would open up a zip file that looks something like this, and you can start opening up these IVT tables to get at the data. In this case, this is I have this open already. This table is split out by, so we have immigrant status, educational attainment, age, sex, your geography, and then these are a list of various statistics that are available to you. Median total income, an average, and also median average after tax income. But a table like this had to be split out. So these were the statistics, but we also have counts looking at after-tax income. So these aren't statistics, these are counts of people with after-tax income that fall into these after-tax income groups. But the table's too large to have it all in one table, so it's split out into 3 different tables. One for the statistics, so the dollar values, one for the counts of after-tax income groups, and one for the counts of total income groups. So I don't know if anyone has any preference for tables for me to look at. I would just go ahead, say with that example, if we were to look at some income statistics comparing the total population to the recent immigrant population for a similar level of educational attainment, first you have to play around a little bit with Beyond 2020, which can be a little bit intimidating for some people. It actually is not, it doesn't take that long to learn. It's a fairly simple program, but it's not intuitive, unfortunately. One resource that I should point to, actually, which I meant to have handy, is an orientation on using the CDP catalog and Beyond 2020. If you go to around the, I'll show you now how to use this, but to go into it in detail, if you can put this in the chat, let's say. Perhaps I'll put that in later. But this is under webinars orientation using the CDP catalog and Beyond 2020. And in this video, around 30 minutes, there's a nice demonstration on how to use Beyond 2020. But quite simply, there's just a lot of dragging and dropping. This table has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dimensions that I can use to cut the data in various ways. And we can change our rows and columns by just grabbing the dimension that we want and dropping it down. And then if we are looking for, if we want to use a dimension that's up at the top here, we just have to grab it and bring it down. Let's say we're interested in those with university diploma and then the total population. I was holding control there to click on something, to click on more than one variable. If I right click and select show, it's going to show only those that are highlighted and hide the rest. I can always get everything back by right clicking and select show all. But if I right click and select show, then here we're looking at only those with a university certificate. Now, say I'm interested in, say we're interested in the median after-tax income of these groups. Maybe I can click on this, and then if I drag down immigrant status, you'll see that the statistics dimension jumps up to the top and keeps median after-tax income selected. I can take this and choose after-tax income, but playing with this button here. I realize this is a lot to throw at you at once, but you can see it's a lot of just grabbing and dropping. I don't mean to make it sound too easy, but so if we're comparing recent immigrants to the total population, so this this right now for all of Canada is showing the difference in the median after-tax income for recent immigrants versus the total population for all ages and for both sexes. This as well, we can, if we wanted to split this out by sex, I can take this, and if I drop it here, then that dimension is going to jump up to the top, but I can hold it here or there, and you'll see that it starts layering dimensions. So now we can see the median after-tax income for males and females, for the total population, and for recent immigrants, looking at those who have a university certificate, diploma or degree or higher. And we can continue doing this. We can layer on more dimensions, and here everything is now split out by age. I like to bring things down here if I want to select the age groups that I'm interested in. Let's get that out of here. I have to bring that down, bring that up there, just because it's going to complicate things a bit too much to have that in there as well. I'm assuming I'm still talking here. I haven't been. Everything's fine. If there's any questions that are coming in.
Yeah, it's great, Mike. I do have one question here, and I was going to suggest also, we have a few minutes to go. If there are any participants who have a specific question about this, a particular range of data or some particular question they would like to know how to answer, maybe they could propose it in the question box, and we could try to walk through sort of going from I would like to know X and then try to get there by finding the correct data table and downloading it.
Yeah.
But the question that's here right now is Beyond 2020 compatible with SPSS, and can the data be transferred readily between Beyond 2020 and SPSS?
I mean, SPSS I don't think will open an IBT table. What you need to do is, for Beyond 2020, anything you're doing in Beyond 2020 is your starting point. The goal with this software is to get it in a form that you can export it, typically into Excel. And this is going to be exported. I usually export things as a CSV file, just a comma-separated value file that can be opened in Excel. You do have the option of exporting tables. You just select File, Save As. Just note that it's always good to save things as some other format. I mean, you can save a new. You risk overwriting. In this case, you risk overwriting the original data table if you stay in the same directory and choose the same file name and file type. At any rate, you can tell just from this interface when this software was developed, and it hasn't really been touched since then. StatsCan is trying to slowly phase out use of this program, of this software, but they haven't found a suitable replacement yet. So yeah, I mean, you can save things as a .xls worksheet. There's no option to save it as XLSX because that's modern. I usually save things as CSV just because that can be opened by anything. So in SPSS, I would suggest that you would just get the data in a format, in CSV format, and open it in SPSS. But unfortunately, and if you wanted to use SPSS to tackle, all of the dimensions at once, you can still bring all of these dimensions down in a form that is of use to you. I won't do it now, but I mean, you can bring everything down and make a great big huge table out of it, put it in CSV. You can't save that in Excel format because it would be too big. So put it in CSV format and then open that in SPSS. But I really only ever use SPSS to deal with large files and get things eventually into Excel. So I'm maybe not the best person to ask about dealing with a large multi-dimensional table in SPSS. But the first step, I believe, would just be to get it into a CSV file. So I'm sort of running a little short on time. I'm assuming that you still need a little bit of the last thing I'll talk about in Beyond 2020 because is just how to find what you're looking for. You're looking for your geography. You can always scroll down, but that's a little bit of a mess. You click on dimension and search. And we're looking at for the English description. And again, if I'm looking at Montreal, then this is giving me, I selected MONTR and it gave me all these options. I'm interested in the city, or let's just take the island. If I click on this button, this shows there's a number of different, behind this dimension, there's a number of different labels. So Montreal, the city, and Montreal, the census subdivision, are two different things. You can see a little more information, what you're looking for. This is Montreal's unique identifier in the standard geographic classification. So 2466023, it is part of Census Division 2466, which is the island of Montreal. And you can look, there's other labels. This is a data quality label. This tells you that this is a census division, census subdivision. So there's a lot of information sort of behind the first label that you see here. So I just click, let's do for the island. And so now for the island of Montreal, we have a comparison here of the median after-tax income for recent immigrants and total population split by sex for those with a university degree. Why don't have any questions come in? I haven't been able to see the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a couple. We're quite short on time. We just have a couple of minutes here, so we'll just have a couple of quick questions. But before that, I want to just remind everyone of the email I sent out yesterday, which includes a link to a survey about your needs in terms of training and skill development around this website and this software. So please do take the time to fill that out, because we will be organizing another seminar in quite shortly, and we'll be able to go into more detail on whatever it is that you identify as your needs. A couple of questions that we have here are, one is, will we obtain these data for no cost as part of the LIP Consortium?
Yes, everything that's in the, if you are a LIP and you're part of the network, then you've just to register your organization and you can access this data catalog.
Okay, another question we have, did I hear correctly that data according to LIP geographical configuration are not yet available?
They are for some tables, but not all. So I know, let's see, for the recent immigrant population, target group profile for the recent immigrant population, if I click on the geographies that are included here, then I see that the immigration sector network is available. but if I go, and for the longitudinal immigration database tables, we have two tables. We have two tables in here that use LIP custom geographies. So this looks at income, mobility, sex, other socio-demographic profile. This uses LIP custom geographies, but this, for example, this one does not. If I'm looking
Okay, Mike, as we are just about out of time, I just want to let everyone know I have put my email address in the chat to everyone. Hopefully you can all see that. And if people have questions about our presentation today or any comments, or if you just want to get in touch about the survey that I mentioned, please feel free to email me there. I just want to thank Michelle and Mike and Sonali for helping us pull this all together, and all of you for attending today. I hope that you've learned something and that you'll be feel better prepared to make use of I think this very important resource that we have available to all of us as LIPs. So once again, thanks Michelle and Mike, and to all of the attendees, and to Sonali and P2P for pulling this together.
Thank you very much, Doug, for navigating us, and Sonali for getting us in order, and for the hosting. It's a great opportunity to share with the network. Look forward to more.